Hey Trevor, it's Dr. Scott. Has some feedback for you on your visual analysis draft. This is a quick reminder of what I'm looking for in this assignment. I'm looking for a thesis statement that's pretty focused, that's clear, it has strong supporting reasons, and I think so for this kind of assignment that's not that long, your supporting reasons are your paragraphs really. And so I'm trying to make sure that the paragraphs are doing a good job of supporting and helping you prove your argument. I'm looking at your use of supporting details. The paragraphs should have supporting details, and then there should be some explanation about how those details help you support your argument. I'm looking for organization and transitions, integrating a couple paraphrases, and then MLA format, integrating a visual into your writing, and a paragraph without be verbs. So for me, I think where we need to talk is about the paper's argument and how you're using details in your paper. So for me, I get I think all of this is kind of your thesis statement. It's a lot. It should probably be shortened a fair bit and kind of clarified, kind of get to the point. But there's one word that's not in here and that comes up a lot throughout the paper, and that's the word pride. And I don't see that here in the thesis statement. I get the small town, making it from a small town idea, but that's different than pride. So for me, I wanted some clarity of what the paper's actually about, because you have this, and I see a little bit of writing about showing how anybody from a small town of Portsmouth or anywhere can make it. That's, I think, a different issue than pride. And so I see some places where you do this. I see a lot of other places where you write about pride. So it left me pretty confused, what the paper is actually about. Once we get into the body paragraphs, particularly the first two body paragraphs, there's a pretty significant issue that you start off telling me that the use of color as shading indicates pride. But then in the paragraph, it's kind of just a summary of what it is you're seeing in terms of shading and coloring. And you have a great eye for detail, and that comes across, but it needs to take that next step, and you need to kind of explain how are these details conveying pride. So you have just one mural in this paragraph, and I think I see this, and I think I've said this several times in class, when you set up a paragraph to talk about just one mural, you often run into this trap of making the paragraph about the mural and not the thing that you're trying to argue about the mural. So you have this paragraph that's really just kind of summarizing the 1930s football mural. Again, great eye for detail, but I'm not sure how these details are helping you support your argument. So I think what should probably happen is that you need to talk about both murals and their use of color and how that conveys pride. I think that kind of needs to happen. And you probably need to have fewer details. But what you then need to do is the details that you keep, you explain in good detail why that's a part of pride. Why does that convey pride? I think it totally can, and I think you picked a good argument that you can write a fair bit about. And with your eye for detail, I think that you can write about the baseball mural, which is one of the tougher murals to write about, but I get a lot of ex-jocks in my classes that try to write about that mural. They're not able to pull it off. I think you can pull that off because of your eye for detail. So both murals need to get into the paragraphs. Right now, kind of keeping them separate, it's led you to two body paragraphs that have a lot of detail, but they're not really kind of explaining how they relate to pride. And so here you're making the argument that it's about success, and other places you're writing about pride, and you do need to figure that out for the thesis statement. You need to choose one or the other. I don't know if you're going to be able to do both. Pride seems to have more legs, but maybe you had something else in mind for the success thing. So that for me is that's kind of the big issue to address, is what is this paper really about? Maybe the way to kind of think about it, and I was thinking about this as I was rereading this part of your paper, the use of color and shading is also effective in the baseball mural. effective in doing what? And again, you need to have both murals in your body paragraphs, but if you're saying that the color and shading is effective, what are they effective in doing? Getting a sense of pride across, getting a sense of, I think you use the word community later on, impressing people with, you know, our sports heritage in this area. What are they effective in doing? I think addressing that question can help you kind of clarify what argument you want to end up with. So, for me, the big issue is, again, clarifying that argument, setting up body paragraphs that are about one particular way that both murals get an idea across about the town, whether it's pride, success, whether it's a sense of community, what have you. I think you need to decide what is the one thing that these murals are trying to get across, and then each body paragraph is talking about how both murals get it across, whether it's color and shading, whether it's actions that they depict, whatever you decide, you need to get both body paragraphs talking about it. Yeah, and then in the body paragraphs, like I mentioned, you do a better job of this later on. Like you'll explain what the details mean, but that's not happening in the first half of the paper. So clarify what the argument is, set up paragraphs to talk about one way that both murals get across that idea, that concept, whether it's pride or what have you, and then use details and explain how those details support your overall argument. After that, there's conversations to be had about integrating paraphrases and organization and getting images into your draft. But what I've talked about here in this screencast is super important before you go forward on some of those other issues. So if anything's confusing, if you want to chat about my feedback, let me know and I'd be happy to talk to you. All right, Trevor, that's it for now. I'll talk to you soon.